Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this in lovely twilight Escazú, Costa Rica, on Sunday, the 21st of June in the year 2026. And it is twilight. It's not dark yet, but boy, the night blooming jasmine is kicking in, and it is fabulous. So, it's a beautiful evening already. So, welcome. I hope if you're celebrating Father's Day, you had a lovely day. It is the solstice. It is the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And we are experiencing the sun entering the sign of Cancer as of 4:24 a.m. today in the Eastern time zone. And I'm in the Central Standard time zone. There's no daylight savings here in Costa Rica. But we have the sun going into the sign of Cancer. And that's a whole new season. This is a whole new dynamic, and it is again the cardinal axis. The sun is now at the cardinal axis as it was when we went into Aries season. And if you remember, and I've reminded you all a million times, that Saturn and Neptune met on the cardinal axis on February 20th. They met at 0 degrees Aries, and any cardinal sign, and that would be Aries, Cancer, and then Libra, and then Capricorn. Any cardinal sign starts with 0 degrees, and it's on the world axis. So it's the cardinal axis. It is the world axis. I was explaining this today to my community here in Dos Rios, that we start the new seasons, and this is how we use Western astrology now, is we go according to the seasons. And we start the new season at every cardinal sign. And when we get to 0 degrees of that in the very beginning of each cardinal sign, that is a very famous point. That means if you have something at 0 degrees cardinal, and it could be any planet, and it didn't have to happen on the solstice or the equinox, but if you have Mercury at, say, 0 degrees Capricorn, or, the sun at 0 degrees Cancer, your birthday's today, you are, tapping into the world axis. A lot of times you'll be known for something. You are known to the world. So a lot of famous people, most famous people, have something on the cardinal axis in their chart, whether it's a midpoint, whether it's, their ascendant, their midheaven, or one of their planets, especially the sun. So there are lots of people born at 0 degrees Aries, that are famous. There are people born 0 degrees Cancer that are famous. They have the sun there. And on, Capricorn, Libra. So we are starting Cancer season today, ruled by the moon. So we pay attention to where the moon is in these next 4 weeks, as the Cancer season develops. And wherever the moon is, we know, she's ruling the sun. She rules the sun this month, and we, for example, the moon entered Libra earlier today, and, she is ruling the Cancer sun. And so Libra and Cancer are both cardinal signs, so they have that in common, but they are squaring one another. They are in a challenge to one another. So we are having the second quarter moon today, which was when the moon entered Libra earlier. And that is, that's a dynamic. The quarters of the moon are always in a dynamic with the sun. They're always in a square with the sun, whereas the new moon is the conjunction of the sun and the moon that we had last week, and the full moon is the opposition of the sun and the moon. So we are now in the season of the crab, and actually, I think I might have mentioned on this podcast last Sunday, the kids found a crab in our river. Which was very weird because we've never seen a crab in the river before. He was a big red crab, and I thought, well, that's nice. We have a crab here, and it's a good sign. It's a good sign. And so we actually had a party today to celebrate the 34th anniversary of Dos Rios, of it existing, and the 34th birthday. And Monica decided she didn't know what day it exactly began, but she decided it should be the solstice, which is a very powerful day and the beginning of Cancer season, and the crab, the season of the crab, and we found the crab in the river last week. So very, very crab oriented, very beachy, though we're not near a beach. But we are in a wonderful new phase of, the Cancer season. And it is lovely for communal getting together like we did today. There were like 12, 13 of us out in the garden. We all made food. I made dessert. And we're always happy to get together. And like some of us didn't know each other. Like there's some lovely people that live here that I'd never met before, because we pass each other and we don't always, connect. And my side of the territory where I live, I'm the vortex. I'm the portal, not the vortex, the portal between the two properties. And so my friends on my side of the river and I came over and joined everyone. And yeah, it was wonderful. And one gentleman here that I had only met today, and I had seen him and his wife around, but he and his wife, he played the violin for us. What a lovely surprise. It was really, really quite nice. So we had a wonderful party. And then just as we were sort of winding down a little bit and he was playing after we had dessert, the rain came, the torrential downpour came, and we all scrambled to get everything out of the garden. But it was interesting because it rained just in this moment, and it poured, and for a while, like maybe a good hour or something, and it hasn't been raining. As you've been hearing me say, we're in El Nino. It hasn't been raining. It rained Thursday, or so. It rained earlier this week, but it's not raining very much at all. It's supposed to be raining every day, and so we were grateful for the rain. But what an odd time for it to rain, because whenever we give these events in the garden, almost never does it rain. So a little surprise for us, but welcomed rain. So yes, so some things have happened, and Cancer is a season of, like I said, gatherings with family, gregariousness. And Cancer is about security, and Cancer is about home, and it is, about the security we feel from our network of people, our family, or who we consider family, like your friends or your family. So it's a good connection time. It's really a time to be connected with people, the people you love, the people you consider home, the people you are in family with and gatherings with. And it just sort of a lovely experience that we should take advantage of in this new month of, Cancer season. So there's been, I think that this last week with all that Venus activity, yikes, and she's in Leo now, but that was intense. That Venus to Uranus, Venus to Neptune, Venus to Pluto, with the moon to Pluto, those first 3 days of last week. And remember, I talked about this last week, extensively. I really felt that was intense. And I had my breakthroughs, thankfully. I definitely had breakthroughs, and they were powerful and life affirming and life advancing for me. But I wonder how everyone else did. I definitely felt, I woke up Monday morning on that Venus Uranus sextile, and I just woke up from chaotic dreams. I'm like, oh, this is Venus, Uranus, but it felt so chaotic, and I got up and sat in the living room and was like, what was that? Even though it wasn't going to have that exact aspect until later in the day, I definitely felt it. And the moon had gone into Cancer that morning, and, I definitely felt things coming, things moving, things shifting and changing for me emotionally. So the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday Venus aspects, definitely I felt them. So I wonder how all of you felt. Did you feel, maybe you don't have Venus aspects to Pluto, maybe you don't have the Venus-Pluto opposition like I do, and it brought a wonderful breakthrough for me. But it's was something churning earlier this week, and I definitely felt it. Now that's my cosmic weather report. That's where I like lick my fingers, stick it in the air, and say, I feel that, and I have to report back to my astro darlings about what that felt like. And I thought it was beautiful, Venus, Neptune, really beautiful, that trine, beautiful things. I came across some beautiful things, beautiful performances I saw on the internet, and that were like viral performances I saw on Instagram and things, and beautiful music, shifting energies, and I definitely felt all of it, and I feel everything anyway. So it was a little overwhelming. So now we are moving into a different sort of week. This is different energy this week, and it's interesting because this is the first week of Cancer season as far as the sun is concerned, and Gemini season is now over, but it is the last week of Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter has been in Cancer since last June. It's been about 13 months, like the beginning of June of last year, like June 1st or something. And it really has been a very powerful time, I think, with Jupiter in Cancer, at least for me. A powerful time of connecting. And we are now ending that cycle. And Jupiter won't be back to Cancer for another 12 years. So if you have planets in Cancer and Jupiter's coming to a close, you may want to do a little ritual for that. Jupiter is leaving Cancer, and it's sitting at like 28 degrees right now. So it's very, very close to the end of the sign, which is 30 degrees. And Mercury is at 24 degrees. And so I would say, yes, we're having a Mercury-Jupiter conjunction. Mercury and Jupiter are very, very close together. And like I always say, if someone's born today, you've got the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction. That's lively, that's speaking up, that's being confident about what you're saying, that's revealing your feelings. And if you need to reveal your feelings to someone, perhaps this is the time you'd like to do that. Cancer energy is a little secretive, very private. But Mars is at 25 Taurus, and it's sextiling the Mercury, and in a sextile, Mercury and Jupiter. And, this week we're going to definitely see how that energy plays out. And it's really very interesting because Mars is encouraging you. Mars always encourages us to step forward, stand up, and take initiative, take action, and go out and connect, because it's sextiling planets that are saying, I want to share my feelings. Now, your feelings could be shared through poetry, through music, through art, through creativity. It doesn't mean you have to go sit down and tell your best friend how you really feel about them, or tell your loved one, or your crush how you feel about them. So, but it's a great self-expression of Mercury and Jupiter together. Now, Mercury is going to slow way down this week, and Mercury is not going to conjunct Jupiter exactly, because Jupiter at this point is getting ready to leave Cancer, and Mercury won't catch up to him. Mercury is going to not be conjunct Jupiter exactly before it goes retrograde. And it's going to go retrograde a week from tomorrow. So the 29th, that's a whole other game. What's interesting is that Mercury is close to Jupiter, but they're going to what we call refrain. Mercury will not make the exact conjunction to Jupiter. Mercury will just kind of hang out there and get as close as 26 degrees, 2 degrees away or so from Jupiter, but it's not. That's where it goes retrograde, and so it's not going to step forward onto Jupiter exactly. And I'm guessing it's going to conjunct when it's in Leo, when Jupiter goes into Leo. So that's not for, Mercury's not going to go there for a while yet. So more on that when it comes up. So Mercury and Jupiter are together. This is considered a conjunction, but it's not an exact conjunction. And so it might be a really inspiring time for you creatively. Maybe you're a writer and you're hitting a dry patch, and now it's the floodgates are going to open. Maybe you're working on a creative project and you're going to get some bigger ideas. This is all good. Mercury, Jupiter, I consider this to be positive. They're together, and it's a positive thing. They're not really getting a lot of torture from other planets. Mercury's past Saturn, Jupiter's past Saturn. They're all past Saturn. So they are just sort of moving on their own path and together. And this is a great time for realizations. As Mercury is stationing, it's going to station very close to Jupiter, and it is a time to open up and have those realizations and have those epiphanies and have more breakthroughs. So, and that may be part of what your week brings for you. The week starts off kind of quiet. There's no big kerfuffle, hullabaloo, anything happening in the first few days. But we start to see some different energy happen on Thursday, the 25th, as is also the last full week of June. And if you can believe it, this year is just about half over. And that would be, first of all, the Sun, newly in Cancer, is going to square Neptune, because we know Neptune is very early in the sign of Aries. And it's not really a big, fast-moving planet since it entered Aries back at the end of January. And so it's really only going to be a few degrees in, and the Sun in a few days will make the challenge, the square. And Neptune is at 4 degrees of Aries. When the Sun gets to 4, it will square Neptune. And so Sun square Neptune is also very inspiring. It's a square, so it's a challenge. So we don't want to be fooled by anything. We don't want to harbor illusions or delusions about anything or anyone. And we want to use this energy to be inspired, to be creative, to be intuitive. And it's great for meditation. It's not a practical energy. The Sun is in a water sign. It's squaring Neptune. It's really good for dreaming, creating, meditating, cooking up some creative idea, challenging yourself a little creatively, pushing the envelope creatively, like really getting into something deeper and allowing things to come to you in a different way, meaning that you don't want to just sort of give up. Like, say, for example, you're working on something creative and you hit a little bit of a snag, or you're trying to figure it out. Allow the energies to come forward. Allow yourself to work through it and come out creatively better on the other side of it, or intuitively better. It could be an intuitive breakthrough. It could be a meditative breakthrough, something that happens in your meditation and it could be healing. Very healing, because Sun Neptune is a healing dynamic, a healing energy. Could be very revealing as well, of something that is beneficial to you, or healing to you. The same day, so that's going to be at 6:38 p.m. Eastern Time. And the same day, but that morning, Venus in Leo is going to trine Saturn in Aries. So that's a nice, smooth, flowing aspect. That's practical, because it's Saturn. And they're also, in fire signs, so they may get us up and moving towards our goals. And, Venus and Leo, Saturn in Aries, Venus in Leo, there's a little bit of self-concern there, shall I say, concerned with what's right for me. It is creative, it is, practical, but there's something, if you're waiting on some project to complete or something, Saturn's always good for doing that. But it's also practical things in your relationships with people, in your money life. But there is creativity there because it is fire. And like I said, Saturn in Aries, Venus in Leo, it's like, what's good for me here? What do I deserve here? What do I feel, worthy of? And that could be a worthiness aspect as well. That could be, hey, you know what? I do feel worthy of this. I do deserve this. But it also may be a bit of a dynamic in your relationships where you're taking care of yourself first. So there's that. And And then there's going to be some interesting stuff as we get into the weekend, next weekend, and then early of the following week. So that Monday, the 29th, is a big, big, big day because it's a week from tomorrow. Like, enjoy the quiet of this week, okay? Enjoy the quiet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. There's not like abnormal amounts of Venus aspects like last week, or there's not abnormal amounts of, things to Pluto this week. It's just the moon and stuff. So as we're getting into, the weekend, and then we get to that next Monday, which I'll discuss in a minute, but more deeply on my next week's podcast, that Monday, the 29th, is a big day. So what we're having the end of the week, Friday, is we're getting, the sun is still in Cancer, and it's making an inconjunct to Pluto, which is that needling aspect I've talked about before. And if the sun is squaring Neptune, then it's going to definitely be in this needling aspect to Pluto on Friday. Because remember, Neptune and Pluto are very close to one another in sextile. They're 60 degrees apart. And so when a planet affects one, it affects the other. There is a dynamic going on. Also on that Friday, the 26th, we have the moon at the end of Scorpio, and it's talking to a lot of planets. It will trine Mercury, that's at the end of Cancer, slowing down. So there's more communicative aspects, qualities in that day. The moon is opposing Mars, okay? And because Mars is in Taurus at the end of Taurus, and then the moon is going to trine Jupiter at the end of Cancer. So that's all happening early enough in the day to Mercury, 6:18 a.m. Eastern. The moon opposite Mars is 11:34 a.m. and the moon trine Jupiter is 1:10 p.m. That's a lot of provoking energy. And the moon's in Scorpio, where she doesn't love being. But, trining Jupiter, she's going to come out of this okay. So if there's any sort of discomfort with Mars at the end of Taurus. Now, moon doesn't like to be in Scorpio. Mars doesn't like to be in Taurus. They like to be in each other's place that they're in. Mars likes to be in Scorpio because it used to rule Scorpio. It's a co-ruler of Scorpio. And moon is exalted in Taurus. So there's friction in the opposition, but they're also in signs they don't love being in. So if there's some friction on Friday morning, the 26th, don't worry about it, because it's going to turn out okay an hour and a half or so later when moon trines Jupiter, and then we can all have a good laugh about whatever we were pissed off about early in the morning. Okay, and then it goes void for like an hour and a half, and then it goes into Sagittarius, the moon. So we're good. We're good. Moon moves through Sagittarius. And that's a good time. So have some plans to have a good time Friday into Saturday, into Sunday. And then I want to tell you that we're getting into more pointed things. Mars in Taurus, which will be the end of Taurus, is going to make a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer. That's Saturday, the 27th. That's later at night. It's really 12:50 a.m. Sunday morning in the Eastern time zone, but you'll be able to feel it because they're already moving into sextile as I speak. As I mentioned earlier, Mars is already in that relationship with Jupiter and Mercury right now. And so it's going to be exact, though, between Saturday and Sunday. And that's a lot of energy. That's Mars saying, hey, let's get up and do something. And Jupiter saying, yeah, let's go. And they are in traditional signs, which is very interesting. And so maybe you're going to visit your family. Maybe you're going to feel a little more motivation towards something, towards securing some funds or resources, or maybe you are going to have a good time with your family or something like that. There's Mars in Taurus, could be more about money, could be more about resources, could be about security. Jupiter in Cancer, definitely about security, family things. But then what's going to get interesting is that even though it's talking to Jupiter from Taurus, that's the wee hours of the morning, By 3:29 p.m. Sunday afternoon, Mars will move into Gemini. Mars is fun in Gemini. He's quick, he's witty, he's sharp, he's smart, he's intelligent, he makes jokes, he's fast. And while it's not a bad sign for him to be in, he's definitely sharper there. He's a little quieter in Taurus, but he'll be there to speak up and talk and run things from Gemini. Now, remember who's in Gemini, and that would be Uranus. And that means what's up and coming, but not happening this week, is that Mars is going to conjunct Uranus. And you know what I always say about those things. When Mars gets involved with Pluto, when Mars gets involved with Uranus, those are the times we really need to keep our headlights on and stay alert as to what is happening around us, okay? More on that next week, because that's really going to happen on the 4th of July. And if you've got fireworks plans and you're in the U.S., you better be careful with those fireworks, okay? Be really careful with those fireworks this year, because that's when Mars and Uranus are going to be conjuncting. So anyone handling fireworks in the next couple weeks, please be careful. But we'll get to that on next week's podcast more directly, okay? So Mars will say farewell to Jupiter on Sunday the 28th in sextile, move into Gemini. And then that Monday, the 29th, is the hot day, because Mercury's going retrograde at 26 degrees of Cancer. Then we are also having the full moon in Capricorn, because the sun is now in Cancer. So it will be at 8 degrees Capricorn. And so that's a hot spot, 8 degrees Cancer, 8 degrees Capricorn, and 23 degrees fixed is the trigger of that by semi-square. Okay, so if you've got something at 23 degrees fixed, like I do, that would be in Aquarius, that would be in Leo, that would be Scorpio, and that would be Taurus. So if you've got anything at 23 degrees in those signs, that's going to get triggered by this full moon in the sign of Capricorn. The full moon comes in Capricorn usually once a year, and so it's very practical full moon. It's when we get things done, but that's a big day because Mercury goes retrograde and Jupiter leaves Cancer and goes into Leo between Monday and the 29th and Tuesday the 30th, and it's 1:52 a.m. Tuesday morning in the Eastern time zone, 10:52 p.m. that night in Monday night, the 29th, and it'll be 11:52 p.m. for me in the Central Standard Time Zone, where Jupiter enters the sign of Leo. So this is the last moments that we're experiencing now, this last week of Jupiter in its exaltation in the sign of Cancer, but it will go into the sign of Leo, and that's a whole different dynamic. Jupiter going into Leo is likely to bring much more creativity, fun, maybe a little overindulgence, fun with children, and big creative ideas, because Leo is a great creativity sign and is about children and is about having fun. And Jupiter's fiery, and so is Leo. Leo's a fire sign. So we've got Jupiter going into Leo. And this is a dynamic that we've been kind of waiting for, because once Jupiter gets into Leo, it's going to get ready to oppose Pluto. And that's a big, big deal. Not happening just yet. And remember, at the end of July, we're having mid-end of July, we're having that big 5-pointed star at everything at 4 degrees, and Jupiter will be part of that in the sign of Leo opposite Pluto, which will come back to 4 degrees Aquarius. So we're getting ready for some big stuff here, and talk about fireworks. Anything going opposite Pluto could get very dramatic. Last week we had that Venus opposite Pluto, and that was on Wednesday. And funny, if you watched my Instagram, you saw this happen. But I was, in my day, in my afternoon, and my cat, Gata Marina, so royalty that she is, she was moseying around the garden, which cats do, and she went a little too far into the main garden, and she was met by one of the tuxedo twins, Bugatti, and she got, he gets close to her, and she's like outraged. She's outraged. She's not afraid of him. She's just like, ugh, what is this? Who is this peasant? And so he got in her face, and I'm in my house, and I hear her scream, and I'm like, oh God, here we go again. And I come out to see her, and I'm like, where are you? And she's coming over the bridge, and she's just offended. She's just so offended. And she has a leaf on her head because she had been strolling over down by the river a little bit and emerged with a yellow leaf from a plant on her head. And it was big enough to cover her head like a little hat. And I looked at her, and she's so offended. And she's got this leaf on her head, so she looks ridiculous, but she's offended. She doesn't know that the leaf is there, but the whole thing was hilarious, and I put it on Instagram. It was in my stories, so it's gone now. Maybe I'll put it as a post. I kept saying to her, you're so mad at Bugatti. And she's just like stomping away, and she keeps looking over her shoulder like, how dare he better not follow me, and how dare he, and just like, with the stride of a queen, come walking over the bridge and into the garden. I'm like, you are so mad, and you are so hilarious with that ridiculous leaf on your head. A humbling experience for her, even though she didn't know what it was and what was going on. It was really pretty funny. That was a Venus Pluto absurdity moment. And we can always get a good laugh when there's all that intense energy with Pluto. So I was happy for the comic relief in that moment with her. She was very funny. So I think this week, at least the beginning of it into the middle, is going to be a little quieter, a little less intense. The moon in Scorpio starting on Wednesday in the middle of the night it always brings a certain amount of intensity, and it's going to now oppose Chiron right away and then get involved with Pluto at some point later in the afternoon and stuff. But it's okay. I don't see any major painful stuff happening here. And I do see big changes, though. Sun square Neptune is always something, a realization of sorts. And I think that as we're building up, Mercury is going to be stationing. Mercury is going to be getting slower and slower until it turns around at 1:36 p.m. on Monday the 29th. So we're going to talk before that. I will be on this podcast next Sunday, and we're going to be having this discussion about all of that's going on that Monday. And Mercury is going to be retrograde from that Monday and go direct on the 23rd of July. And it will go direct at 16 degrees of Cancer. So it's going to move about 10 degrees backwards. And so if you have something in Cancer along between 26 and 16 and 26 Cancer, you're going to feel this Mercury retrograde. Maybe you have Mercury there. Maybe you have another planet there, but anything in that mid-range of the sign of Cancer, that's when Mercury is going to be touching them during these next 3 weeks till July 23rd. And when Mercury starts to get ready to go direct is when we're going to have that 5-pointed star. Mercury really won't be part of that. But I can say that we are, in an interesting shift and change by the end of this week, because Mars is going to change signs to go into Gemini. Jupiter is going to change signs, which it only does once a year, and go into Leo the following Monday. And Mercury is going to change direction. So there's a lot at the end of the week. So I think the energy will build this week, really starting around Thursday. And then it's going to build and build until we get to that peak on Monday with the full moon and the new sign for Jupiter and Mercury stationing. And so hang on to your hat. Nothing to worry about, but really just be prepared as we move through to new dynamics, new intentions, and what is it that we want to bring into our lives with Jupiter in Leo. Think about that. Leo is lively. Leo is fun. Leo is creative in the way I always think of Leo like, when you're kids, Leo's about children. It's the fifth house. And, when you're a kid and you cook up all these games and you're creative, it doesn't matter. You're playing house, you're playing office, you're playing restaurant, you're playing airport, you're playing airline, you're playing all sorts of stuff. You're making up the games and there's no rules and nobody cares. And, I'm going to be this one. Okay, you're going to be that one. And you're going to pretend you're this. You're going to pretend you're this person or that thing. And you have the sky is the limit. And so that's such an important thing to remember, because once we get to be serious adults, we don't play like that anymore. We don't. No one's going to say, hey, who are you pretending to be today? What's your name today? Okay, we're going to play this game and I'm running a restaurant and we're going to have like big parties there. And nobody's playing games. We're doing it in real life. But we lose our playfulness, our imagination, and our creativity in that leonine sense. So Leo loves to inject some of that playfulness, and cats are playful. Leo is a playful sign. Lions can be playful. Big cats can be playful when they're not charging charging at you, and you're completely freaked out because you're face to face with a tiger. But I recommend starting to dive into and surround yourself with creativity. What is it that you want to bring into your life? What kind of fun, lovely things do you want to bring in? And Leo's about love. It's about the heart. So how do you want to open your heart? What do you want to open your heart to? And how about whom do you want to open your heart to, right? Do you want to open your heart to a project, to your own sense of creativity, to another person? What is it that you want to open your heart to? And that's a really good message for Jupiter in Leo, right? Yesterday we were out a bit, and Alejandro, who plays drums, and now his son is playing the drums, and they were going over to his brother's house to do drums. And he says, we eat, drink, sleep, drums. And that's going all in on your creativity. He's played the drums forever, but now his kid is 14 and he's starting to play the drums, and getting used to, now 2 drummers are in the house and they're drumming together, and they change the music in the car and they're both drumming on the car together. And so it's fun. Think about what's fun and lively, and what do you want to open your heart to as Jupiter gets ready to go into Leo. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful week ahead. Write to me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com, deb@debmcbride.com. Tell me what it's about for you. What are you feeling? How was Venus last week? What are you wishing for with Jupiter going into Leo? I hope that, the week ahead, this last week of Jupiter in Cancer, brings you some abundant surprise. And if you want to have a session with me, you can connect with me on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. Click book online on my website, or book now in my profile on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, and set up a session with me for astrology. You can set up a session for Reiki with me. It's 5D Lemurian Reiki. And you can set up expansion mentoring, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and we can spend longer time together working through to the next level of your life. Love to everyone, blessings to everyone, gratitude always to everyone for listening, and I will see you on the internet. Have a gorgeous week.